I think we should go ahead and get started. First off, I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar about research administration job families. I'm Selena Keneally. I'm the Associate Director for New Mexico EPSCoR, which is based out of the University of New Mexico here in Albuquerque. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Our webinar is scheduled to last an hour. We do have the Q&A box enabled, and we'd like to ask people to ask questions in Q&A. Our speakers are going to be monitoring that and answering questions as it makes sense during the presentation, and also addressing those at the end. We will make the recording and slides available to anybody who's registered for the webinar, and in addition, we'll be posting them to the EPSCoR website and the YouTube channel. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our project leader, Hannah Torres, to introduce herself and talk more about what was the origin of this webinar.
Thank you, Selena, and welcome everyone. We're excited to have you here today to learn more about research job families. This webinar is one of a three-part series following from our NSF Granted conference that was held in February of 2024. We were fortunate to have Thomas Spencer as one of our speakers for that conference, and so we're very excited to have him back today with his colleagues to share more with us. The webinar that we hosted last week shared some of our outcomes from the conference, and we welcome you to view that recording on the EPSCoR website. And next week, we're going to have our final of this three-part webinar series, which will be a collaborative session to get people to talk about some ideas that they have for supporting and enhancing research and innovation across the Southwest. So we have 5 folks from across the Southwest who will be pitching ideas that can be future projects or informal collaborations. And we're just going to gather and talk about where those ideas might go together. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to a wonderful discussion today, and I will hand it back to Selena now to welcome our speakers.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And Hannah, if I could ask you to post in the chat the link to register for next week, that would be awesome.
I will do that, yes.
Well, I'm so pleased to welcome our 3 speakers today. We have Thomas B. Spencer, who's the Associate Vice President for Research Operations at UT Rio Grande Valley. Welcome. Christina K. Chavez, Assistant Vice President for Human Resources, also at UT Rio Grande Valley. We're glad to have you here. And Zoya Davis Hamilton, the Associate Vice Provost, Research Administration at Tufts University. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn the screen over to the team to present. Thank you.
No, we practiced this in pre, but I don't see the ability to share anymore. 1 second.
Hang on.
There it is. Got it. Okay.
Looks great.
Okay, excellent, everyone. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Forgive me, I lost my voice earlier this week, so if I squeak or sound weird, I'm getting over a cold. But I think this is a topic that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts. Finding good employees, the how and the why hiring for research administration can be very difficult right now. And so the 3 of us sat down together and decided that we would do a case study of the differences and challenges and 2 approaches between the 2 universities. And so we wanted to share some of the things that we've learned with you today, and we'll go from there. And as Selena noted, I am Thomas Spencer. I am the Associate Vice President of Research Operations at UTRGV, and I'll turn it over to my co-presenters.
Thanks, Thomas. And I'm Zoya Davis Hamilton, and I'm not sure what information would be useful for you all to know about me, but I work at Tufts University since 2008 and I have been in my role since 2017.
Good afternoon. My name is Cristina Chavez. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Human Resources. I've been supporting Thomas on his research-related hires and everything to make sure that he keeps the wheels spinning and his team staffed. So that's what we've been helping with.
Everyone. So we as we sat down to talk about this, we said, well, job retention, and why is it particularly important for research administration? And so when you talk about research administration, and I think we're probably preaching to the choir on this call here, the research administration professionals are necessary to maintain and support the increase of research capacity at our organizations. There is no research without research administration. And research administration is an incredibly challenging job. There's constant pressure of deadlines. There's constant pressure of rules and regulations and making sure that we're prepared for audits. Additionally, there's an ever-evolving knowledge base due to changing policies. So it is a difficult and challenging job itself. And retention is important for retaining institutional knowledge. And I'll tell a story. My previous institution where I was at, during COVID, and we'll talk a little bit about COVID and some of that in a second, but during that time, in about a period of a year, a lot of us left that institution to go to other opportunities, and some of us did some back of the napkin math, and we realized that over 200 years of institutional knowledge had left within the course of a year at my previous institution, and that's significant. I mean, there's a lot of the how and the why instantly gone with that group of staff that's leaving. And so when you're dealing with that kind of when you're dealing with hiring people in that kind of environment, it can be very difficult. And additionally, for the people who remain, understaffed offices lead to employee burnout. It's a big concern, especially in research administration. Christina, Zoe, any comments on this one?
So
I feel that you covered it very well, Thomas. Nothing from me.
Okay.
So whenever we see one of the job postings come in for anything research related, we already know that we're up for a challenge, because commonly our time to fill on average is between 45 to 50 days, depends on the time of the year. Around this time, it's going to go up a little bit because of the holidays. But whenever we see anything coming in that's related to research administration, we're already prepared to be looking at a 3 to 6 month search until we can get somebody through the door and placed.
So when you get drill down to research administration, there are some internal and external factors that are driving a higher than average employee turnover rate. And again, we sat down and talked about some of the things that were driving us in our institutions, and I imagine some people in the audience are feeling the same pressures. The media can't quite decide on whether or not it's called the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle, but I think that that's a fair explanation either way. A lot of people in and around the pandemic decided to move organizations, some of that driven by the work modality options that were not previously on the table. We also determined that employees are often motivated by a positive work environment. Wanting to feel like their work has a meaningful impact, especially in research administration, aligns with personal values while allowing to maintain a healthy lifestyle outside of work is very, very desirable. As the job market changes, work-life balance is more important and often much more visible than it has been in prior years. And we also discussed that the work that we do must also include a meaningful why for our employees. And I think that's something that can often be lost, especially when we're so deadline driven. We forget the fact that we're serving research and research administration. There is a meaningful why behind the work we do. Additionally, remote and hybrid options are now on the table, and they give opportunities for people to move without needing to move. And that's kind of an interesting way of phrasing it, but it's much easier to move institutions without necessarily having to move your house and uproot your life and your family and your children. Additionally, entry-level employees often do not have long tenures anymore. Very rarely does a person stay with an institution for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years like they have in the past. In our exploration, and we found that on average, it seems to be about 2 years, and they're frequently looking for the next thing. The mindset that we've seen for employees these days are employees are wanting to move up or move out. And that's kind of where we found we're in the realm of research administration, some of the concerns or challenges and opportunities for job retention at the moment. I'm going to leave it for Christina or Zoya if there's anything I missed.
I think
Okay.
that's what we're facing. 2 years.
Okay. Okay. First poll question.
So I think, Hannah, you're going to be driving the poll, right? So at this point, do you or does your staff have a clear understanding of the career paths available in research administration? So our options are either yes, it is clear what skills and experiences are needed to progress. Second one, occasionally there is a feeling of being stuck, or no, there is not a clear path to progress. So if you can go ahead and make your choice, and then once we see and overall any employee should be understanding how they can progress to the next level in their career. If that is not something clear to you, I would go ahead, check your HR website, check if there is a pay plan, check if their job descriptions available, or seek a discussion with your supervisor, because this is not something that should only be discussed on an annual basis when you're getting your evaluation. This is something your career planning for yourself should really be happening on a regular basis. It's not just something that, we'll have a half an hour discussion once a year and then everybody goes back to their computer and keeps on writing grants, keeps on supporting faculty. But this is something that you really should be working on a continuous basis. See where you want to go and then determine how to get there. So at this point, I think, has everybody voted? Drum roll. Okay. So no, there's not a clear path to progress. So that would be the audience where I would recommend go talk to your supervisor, talk to your HR office if you don't have that clear communication with your supervisor. But I would always recommend talk to your supervisor, because that way you can talk to the person that has been there, that can set the expectations for you, and just look at, where do I want to be in 2 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And see how you want to get there, and then start getting your plan ready there. Thank you. Okay, job family. Overall, what we're seeing is that institutions of higher education have different job families. So that's basically how jobs are organized. If you look at the job family, it's actually a broad group. So we've got, for example, our accountants, we've got our trades, we've got our human resources titles. And these are jobs that are closely related in skill set, nature of work, and in the job functions. Then within the job family, you actually have a job structure. So the structure would be your accountant 1, 2, 3, or your research coordinator, senior research coordinators. So, and depending on where you are, it can be very narrowly defined. For example, we've got an accountant 1, 2, 3, 4, and very specific skill sets, very specific requirements from how to move from a 1 to a 2. You may be in a union environment where you have very clear step plan. Once you reach a certain year of experience, you move up to the next level. Or it can be very informal, that it's very broad. You've got one job title of accountant and or of grant research coordinator, and that's the job that everybody kind of falls in. And then for each posting, this may be a little bit more customized, or during the interview process, the expectations may be set, but overall it can be very broad. And if you're in that situation where it's very broad, it really helps to talk to your supervisor to say, what are the specific expectations set in me? And Zoya is going to talk specifically about the expectations for research administration.
Thanks, Christina. And of course, research administration is what is near and dear to my heart. So I don't have such a big view as Christina does overall for HR related matters. But for research administration, because of this expectation that people would be growing in their profession, that is more acute because there is such a demand for research administration. I think career progression is incredibly important to us. And then, of course, it's not enough to just have base knowledge. It's necessary to develop your knowledge constantly and align your skills with the new demands and requirements. And so the job family becomes more important than ever for us, because we don't want to just come up with the job titles anytime that we feel that somebody is ready to get additional recognition. So if we can advance to the next slide, please. I think, don't we have another poll?
Yeah, so at this point, if you think about your own institution, do you have a formalized approach? Do you have a formal job family and clearly defined career ladders? So we've got the yes, no, and unsure. And frankly, neither approach is right or wrong. It just really depends on the size of institution that you're in. If you're in a smaller size institution, you are going to be more of a jack of all trades. You are going to be taking on more variety of duties. In a larger institution, you're likely more specialized. And it may have an impact about how easy it is to move into a different role, because if you've been doing exactly the same thing and that's what you're comfortable with and trained with, then it could be that you're just very, very specialized, and then taking on additional duties may be something that is going a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So if we can, I guess, close the vote. Okay, so the majority seem to have, well, actually we're at exactly 50-50. So yes, we have we have a formal approach, and then 33% are not sure, I'm sorry, 33% saying it is not a clearly defined job family or career ladder, and then 17% are not sure. So as I said, there's no right or wrong approach to have this clearly defined. It really depends specifically on your institution. If you don't have something and you are in a leadership position and want to have this more formalized, I would recommend go knock on the door of your HR office and say, hey, how can we either set it up or communicate what we have already set? Because your HR office may think that you have the career families and the job ladders. So, and there may just be a disconnect about this not being clearly communicated. Thank you.
Well, all right. I will walk you through Tufts' journey to set up research administration job families. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Tufts University. For those of you who may not know, Tufts is a private mid-sized university, and we were founded in 1852. We reported about close to 250 million in research expenditures for fiscal year 23. We are expecting a larger number for fiscal 24. So our preliminary number is over 278 million. We are a member of Association of American Universities, and we are classified as an institution with very high research activity. Just geographically, we have 4 campuses in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts, and we have a variety of different schools, which are medical, dental, veterinary, nutrition, arts and sciences, engineering, School of Fine Arts, Law and Diplomacy, College of Civic Life. So as you can see, it spans a large variety of different disciplines. So this is one of the characteristics at Tufts. We are very diverse in that sense. And for research administration specifically, we have almost 100 people in research administration jobs, and that includes people in the departments and schools and at the central level. And we have sort of three groups of research administrators. So we have pre-award that reports to the Vice Provost for Research. We have post-award that reports to finance, and we have matrix reporting for the school-based research administrators. If we can go forward, please. So our research administration job family is not new. We first created it in 2015 when we established a clearly defined role for research administrator. But then in 2019, we took it to the next level, so to speak. And I'll tell you about it in a minute. But just to describe what the job family is, we have one hourly title, which is research administration coordinator. And the rest of the positions are exempt. And they go through levels 1, 2, and 3. And 3 is called senior research administrator because we think it is a more adequate title. And then we have 2 supervisory positions of research administration associate director and research administration director. And so none of the other positions have manager duties. Next slide, please. And so how did we get here? So we used a framework developed by it's called Korn Ferry Leadership Architect, and it's trademarked framework. And essentially, the framework itself has 38 core competencies to select from. And they are grouped into several factors. And so just to give you an idea, so a competency might be, for example, ability to collaborate or customer focus or managing complexity. Those are competencies. And then the factors under which this would be grouped is self, people, results, and so on. And so when we delineated the job family, the first step to do, we gathered in focus groups led by HR, and we worked with the cards that come with this framework to designate a weighted score for each competency. It was a whole day adventure, so to speak. And it was informed by the values and vision of the organization for this particular profession. So it wasn't what we have chose for Tufts may not be what other institutions might choose for research administration necessarily. So we narrowed it down, we chose a limited number of competencies because, as we know, not everybody is excellent in everything or should be expected to be excellent in all areas. And then from those competencies, HR has developed for us job profiles, job descriptions, strategies for recruitment and talent sourcing, and some scenarios for interview questions. And then following that, HR has developed pay ranges for the positions within the research administration job family. And I know that here on the slide, it says updated pay ranges, but it's a continuous process. It's not possible to update those once and forever have your pay ranges. As we know, those things change and evolve. So it's a continuous process of working with HR whenever appropriate at some periodic intervals to look at those pay ranges and update them. Next slide, please. So I'm going to first tell you about the benefits, and then, of course, after benefits, I'll have to cover challenges. But first, the benefits. The obvious benefits is that now that we have standard job descriptions, we can very quickly post new positions because job descriptions don't need to be reviewed again each time. There is already a text that goes on the website for each level of the job. We have some aids such as an interview worksheet, questions. Those are not required for managers to use, but they are helpful. We already have those competencies highlighted. We have some improvement in career mobility and retention because staff throughout the university can move to positions either at the next level of seniority or laterally. And it's known and clear which positions are next level of seniority and which ones are the same level. And that can happen outside of their units, and the titles are the same. And then it helps us manage, and I feel like this particular area we haven't fully utilized yet because of the limitations of our systems. But we are working towards, and in some systems we already do, that the positions with the same title have the same permissions, and this is based on the job code. So when the person is hired and their position has a job code, it's already known which systems then they can have permissions. So the only thing that we can then establish is based on these permissions, which department IDs or which account codes will be falling into these permissions, but we don't have to decide, do they have view permission? Do they have submit permission? Do they have approve permission? Those are already automatically established. And we hope to improve when we get a new university enterprise system even further in this direction. We have more effective identification of training needs, and we have a university-ran training program for research administration that is ran out of my office. And we easily know how many staff are at each level and develop our training and credentialing system accordingly. And generally, we find that it's helpful to have clarity of responsibilities for different levels within the job family. It gives us the same terminology, vocabulary to talk about this with the staff, consistency of expectations across units and centrally as well. So those are the benefits. And now we can move to the challenges, I think. So challenges, of course, there is no thing in the world that doesn't have challenges, I feel like. So one of the big challenges is, and I'm going to jump around the slide a little bit, is cost. Because the establishment of the pay ranges doesn't mean that there is a fixed number. Pay range is just that. You have a minimum, you have a midpoint, and you have a maximum. And so each area can determine, and for each staff member and for their area in general, where in the pay range the person is going to fall. And so it becomes challenging then to have equity and parity of compensation for similar duties, because those things are also predicated on the budgets of the schools. And at Tufts, we use a budget model that allows each school to manage their own budget. And so depending on their budget, we can have differential in the salaries of people in the same job title. So that's one consideration. And then the other challenge is that sometimes we receive a pushback most often for two different things. One is to give a senior research administrator management duties, which is not part of our job family. And when we, learn what true reasons are, most of the time we find that this person is either ready for a promotion, or the school just doesn't have funds to promote them, or they have a manager with too many direct reports and they're trying to remediate that. So, we try to hold our position on this, and then occasionally we have a pushback to create positions, more positions with the word director in them. For example, assistant director or senior associate director or things like, or senior director, things like that. But when we were creating our job family, we really, really tried hard to determine, do we need more levels? And we just could not see a difference between these levels that we could document by competencies. So we don't have those levels. And I think we have a Paul right after this, right? Christina, turning this over to you.
Yes, we do. So the question would be, would you prefer a system with more levels of seniority or fewer, or with fewer clearly defined ones? So just two options here: more levels of incremental growth or fewer levels with a clear distinction between the roles. So again, this is one of those questions where there's no right or wrong answer. It is just what is appropriate for your current situation. And so this is something where your situation may also change as your approach to research changes. If your institution says, you know what, we're going to really grow our research enterprise, they may end up saying we need more levels, or we need to be more flexible, so let's have fewer levels. This is really just dependent on the approach that the institution sees works best for them.
And I'm noticing a question in the chat about research development roles. And I just want to say that when we did this exercise, we did create a job family for research development as well at that time. So we do have that job family, but it's a smaller unit, so it's not as populous as research administration by all means, but we do have an advantage of that job family too.
And from our side as well, I'll note that we do have distinct job titles under, we call it research enhancement, not research development. We also have a unique role under research enhancement as well.
And the poll has finished, and basically the majority of participants would like more levels for incremental growth. Great, thank you for the feedback.
Yeah. Forgive me, I'm coughing again. But I wanted to give a little bit of background on UTRGV and a little bit of, Zoya gave a little bit of history on Tufts. I'll give a little bit of history on UTRGV. We are a newer institution with rapidly growing research expenditures. We were created by the Texas legislature in 2013, and we were actually founded in 2015. Our first class was the fall of 2016. We were created from two legacy institutions, UT Pan American and UT Brownsville, plus a brand new School of Medicine. We are a massively geographically located institution across 200 miles of the United States-Mexico border. I believe we're up to 6 campuses at the moment. And so we have a huge swath to cover in terms geographically. We have goals of becoming an emerging research university, which I believe is a Texas only status. And finally, with Carnegie R1 as a middle ground impact. And finally, with the ability and clearly measurable community impact. You can see our total research expenditures. This will be reported to the herd. We are looking at close to $90 million in research for the NSF herd. And we have had some pretty significant growth over the last year. Some of the operational metrics that we capture to help measure that growth are the number of proposals submitted, the number of awards, and the number of expenditures. And you can see in our chart here that we have been growing pretty steadily over the last several years, with a pretty significant jump last year from $98 million to over $200 million in total funded amount. And as I was putting this chart together, someone mentioned that I was left-handed, and they were right. And you can see because I've been reading it from right to left, and the most current years all the way to the right, to the left there. Christina, any other commentary about the growth of UTRGV? I know you've been here since the beginning.
Yes, I came from one of the legacy institutions, and research used to be something that was part of academic affairs. And then whenever UTRGV was created, it turned into its own division with focus of increased research and the expectation of growth. And that is proven by the chart that Thomas is sharing right now. They've done incredible work since he came.
Well, not just me, but it's an amazing group
Since
of
everybody came.
Yes. So so Christina, let's talk about some HR opportunities at UTRGV.
So actually, let's go back to to one of the legacy institutions, because we used to have a committee that would meet and really talk about, okay, how do we make sure that research is basically in everybody's job description. And it was small at that time, but whenever the division of research was created, I've always worked kind of hand in hand with the respective leader to make sure that we do support them with the hires. We do support them with the job descriptions, because at that point we were basically tasked with creating all of these new job descriptions. And because before, as I said, it was a smaller undertaking, it was less job descriptions, less focus, and we got very direct marching orders in 2015 to grow the research enterprise. And part of that was to go ahead and create those job descriptions, and come up with the right mix of specialized and generic to make sure that the right support is there for our PIs and for the research enterprise. So based on how we need it, we're being flexible. And as we see that some things may be working or may not work, we are tweaking it, because like Zoya was saying, salary ranges are not a once and done. Job descriptions are living, breathing documents, and we need to be prepared to react to how your market is changing. And that's what we're there to support the Division of Research with, to make sure that we give them the tools to be able to hire the right individuals into their positions, and then to be able to keep them and make sure that we exceed that 2-year time frame and really build and keep that institutional knowledge.
And I will note that Christina probably hears from me more than most of her other customers, because we are constantly tweaking research and research administration job descriptions and job roles to try to better meet the market. As it says here on the slide, we have 49 job descriptions within the Division of Research. That does include, it sounds like a lot, but that does include pre-award, post-award, development, compliance, animals, and quite a wide breadth of jobs. And each one of them generally has anywhere between 4 and 5 positions before you get to what we call A and P, the director level. And so we picked this sample job family here, which is our pre-award group, to demonstrate that we do have gradation as discussed by Tufts. But for an outside person or someone who's not necessarily in the role, they may not necessarily quickly understand the difference between a coordinator and an associate, which is why we have to make sure that the job descriptions can provide that level of understanding. I'll give a little bit of a case study, an example of how we're able to navigate with individual humans. This is a anonymized discussion of someone who actually worked in the Division of Research. We had a student that was hired as a student worker in the Division of Research. She was hired directly out of her Bachelor of Business into a junior coordinator role at UTRGV. After 3 years, she was promoted into a senior coordinator. She sought and completed her MBA and her Certified Research Administrator certification. However, there was no line of direct promotion, as both the manager and the director in that line of work was already occupied. So the supervisor and human resources worked to identify opportunities in the Division of Research. The candidate was given the opportunities to demonstrate those needed skills and seek those needed criteria. And then the candidate was applied for and was hired as the manager in an office of compliance. So we had to work with and find solutions to keep a very excellent person all the way from a student all the way into leadership. And it required a lot of hand-holding and a lot of actually working with human resources at every level. But because human resources was so flexible and willing to do that with us, we had a pretty excellent success story. So I did want to make sure that we didn't just say that, as Christina noted, there is no right or wrong way to do this. And so there have been some challenges at UTRGV as well. Balancing the flexibility and structure, flexible roles and non-standard naming, as I think our poll showed us, can limit career advancement and can confuse career pathing for staff. If there is not a clear designated step ladder of where you want to be and where you can be, then it can be confusing for employees who sometimes might see human resources or even job roles as kind of a black box. They know they're there, but they may not know how to get to them, and they may be not willing to have conversations with their supervisors. For collaborating, I think I talked about this, ensuring that our roles fit the research need while maintaining internal quality. We do not want to hire people or give them the role of senior simply because they've been in a role for a specific number of years. They need to demonstrate that they're actually able to do the next job up for the job that they're applying for. Christina noted that there have been a number of leadership changes in the early days of the Division of Research, and that did not necessarily allow for the attention to review the job roles. Sometimes job roles are addressed on an as-needed basis, and so if there's not been a duration of leadership, no one might have never had a chance to sit down and say, okay, of these 49 jobs, should there really only be 36 or should there be 57? And there has not been that opportunity to do that. And actually, that's something Christina and I are working on right now. Starts and restarts during the growth of the university. As a brand new university, there have been growing pains and growing opportunities, but that has proven to be challenging at times. And then we have a large population in the Rio Grande Valley, but fewer trained to support research administration, which means we can't hire subject matter experts locally. Along that border that I showed on the map, we have a population of about 1.4 million people. But unlike some of the other major metropolitan areas in Texas and other states, there really aren't a number of universities or colleges that are all doing similar work. And so we don't have an opportunity to hire someone from the college across the street or across the city. And so we are having to, by the nature of where we are geographically located, hire junior people and train them into senior roles if we want those people to be local to the university. Christine, any other commentary on that one?
Yes, and in addition to, I mean, once we do have our employees trained, we do sometimes run into the situation that other institutions do hire them away. And then we go right back to the remote work part because they don't even have to move. They can work remote with another institution somewhere in Texas, outside of Texas. And they have a lot of flexibility. So because we have lost people to out of state employers, and it is loss of institutional knowledge, and that's something we try to avoid as much as possible. But sometimes we do see them leave.
That is a good point. In fact, at one point in the last year, I was getting a coffee at Starbucks and I saw someone who used to work for UTRGV, and she now has a job on the West Coast, and she didn't move. So that's a real challenge.
We hired someone within the last year and a half from Texas. I don't know exactly from where. I can't remember where the person came from, but we do have the person working remotely from Texas.
Well, we're happy we could help.
Well, and that's something we're limited in because the moment we look at employees outside of Texas, we're going to have to deal potentially with a lot stricter employment laws that apply in for those employees. Then it may also apply for any employee reporting to them. So we have to be extremely careful of how much remote hybrid work we're able to do.
That's true. So I think what we found is that during our case study of reviewing our two institutions, that and feel free to chime in, we're different. I think everyone on this call is probably different, but we all have similar goals. And I think when we looked at our differences and our similarities, I think we kind of tried to drill it down to some takeaways for everyone else, is that communication between research administration and human resources must be frequent. You must have a relationship between your division of research, whatever the name of it is, and your human resources area. It must be frequent, and you must be comfortable with that conversation. As I noted, Christina and I, we talk probably twice a week about something. Either it's a grant application going out, and we need to determine what the roles will be on that, or how are we working on hiring new people. But Christina deals with me quite often. some differences, the formal job family versus a flexible approach. And I think Christina hit the nail on the head there. There is no right or wrong. It's just how your institution has been and how your institution wants to be. I really enjoy the way Tufts does that. That clear demarcation for me is excellent. But then having the flexibility for us to be able to provide a case study for a student all the way to a leader and finding her a unique path is also very useful for us as well. The success factors both are focused on talent acquisition, development, retention, and organizational growth. This entire concept of growing research in the United States right now is undergoing a huge growth. The universities want to grow. In fact, Zoya, you were talking about a new program of apprenticeship at Tufts, and I'd love you to share a little bit about that, if you're comfortable.
Sure. Thanks, Thomas. So the apprenticeship program is also funded by NSF GRANTED, and it will be a 6 months program for 7 people from a nearby community college to come and learn some of the elements of research administration and research compliance jobs. So we are planning to bring people to Tufts in the fall of 2025, and they will, prior to that, will be taking 2 specific courses at the community college over the next summer. So that's kind of the plan right now for that program. And we will be sharing results more broadly because it's a pilot program to understand conceptually whether or not a pipeline from community college is a viable pipeline into research administration, because as you said, Thomas, it's very hard to find people. And I can assure you that even if you have other colleges across the street and in the same city, it doesn't get any easier because there is always fewer professionals than positions. And we are kind of all trying to steal people from each other. And we're in a similar situation as you guys are.
Thank you. Excellent. I love the concept of an apprenticeship program. For those of you who might be members of Encura, I noticed an email coming out from them a couple of days ago about a new type of membership for apprenticeship. So that might be something for those of you on the call who are in positions where you have the authority at your university. Maybe an apprenticeship is something that you could look into to help build that base of potential future employees. Christina, any commentary on moving forward?
Basically, yes, any kind of internship would be great. And getting, as part of my job in HR, I also oversee student employment. And at any given point, we have 2,500 student employees working on campus. A lot of them are within research, and some of them may turn into future research professionals. So definitely train your students as much as possible, because yes, some of them are doing it because they were at work study and they want the extra paycheck, and then later on they want to move on into their job in whatever. But you may get that those one or two individuals who are going to decide, you know what, later on when they're looking for a job, they're going to come back to research administration, because it's a unique mix of, you deal with numbers, you deal with people, you deal with, you're not just a one-trick pony. You have a variety of opportunities in this field, and that's something that actually appeals to our student population.
Mm-hmm. And I always like to give everyone who comes to one of these things an opportunity for something that's takeaway and it's real. Every member of the UT system schools publishes their job duties and job roles on their websites. And so if you wanted to go and take an opportunity to look at some other universities' job roles and job duties, you can go looking for them on the university websites, find them and do a comparison and bring some real world examples back to your university. And so rather than having a conversation of this is what I would like to do, but you don't have any examples to it, Now you would have examples of UTRGV, Tufts, and you can also go and find other universities' job descriptions as well. Oftentimes those aren't included or easy to find in Google. And so if you go looking for job duty descriptions for research administration, you're going to get the standard Glassdoor situation, things like that. It's probably not going to be helpful for you. But if you go to the websites and you go to human resources for different universities, there's often a good chance you're actually going to be able to find the actual job descriptions that you can use as comparison and contrasting for your roles at your university as well. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that's a great way to take something real and valuable out of this communication beyond our case studies.
I like this idea, Thomas, of sharing experience that you're promoting. And as I was listening to you and Christina talk about the job descriptions, I realized that, conceptually, we're talking about two different approaches for the job descriptions. So you were talking about flexibility of the job description and growing those job descriptions in real time or evolving them in real time as our landscape changes. And conceptually, we are approaching it from a very different angle. We are trying to pull things like, for example, assist researchers in building proposals. That's not going to change. That's not going to evolve. We used to have things like has to be knowledgeable to submit proposals in Fastlane. And Fastlane, of course, is gone, and now there is research.gov. And so we no longer include things like that. But like understand and apply sponsor and university regulations and guidelines, that's also not going to change. So we are trying to make our job descriptions very condensed, very, very high level, and put things in there that are not going to become obsolete or we would need to keep an eye on them very often. Of course, we revisit them every so often, but we try to avoid things that are going to give us more work. So there is economy of effort, shall we say,
Yes.
in this approach.
Oh, and I have greatly learned from yours. So I appreciate that very much. I think we're at questions. If we have any questions. Christina, are there any questions that in the actual chat box?
Not right now. I did not
No?
see it. There was that one, but that was it.
Okay.
We do have a few minutes, so I want to encourage folks to post questions if you have questions. And I'll take advantage. Zoya, I'm super excited to hear about your apprenticeship program. I think it's really great. And I appreciate that you are doing it as a pilot and are going to publish your results so we can learn from what you all
Yeah,
have
I'm
discovered.
hoping one of my collaborators is also on this call, but yes, we are definitely going to evaluate this and publish. But I also, before we wrap up, I also want to give a sort of highlight one other point that was made, I think by both Thomas and Christina, how important collaboration is with HR. And I don't have an HR rep presenting with me today, but I want to say that this work is not possible at all without collaboration with HR. And at Tufts, especially because we're decentralized, HR is gatekeepers for any requests for compensation, promotion, hiring, and whatnot. And so if we don't have this collaboration, there is no way to maintain fidelity with the job family. So I just wanted to give more prominence to this point because research administrators alone cannot do this.
It's true.
Well, as an instructor, I'm good at wait time, but I don't want to, we could just keep waiting, but I'll take this time to thank our panelists and our speakers. Thank you. It's really been wonderful to spend time with you this afternoon and thinking about this important thing, which I think virtually any institution is facing. So it was great to see where your successes are, and thank you for sharing your pain points as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciated it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think with that, we will wrap things up. And as I mentioned at the top, we will be sharing this recording and slides out with presenters. And I'll have it posted on our EPSCoR website as well. Thank you.
Great.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.